What's going on, everybody? You're listening to the Point2Point NHL Recap Show. I'm Pascal Pryor, joined by Mark Havlack, and today we're going to talk about a few trades that went down over the past week or so since we last recorded, one of which we did talk about a little bit on the last episode. We're also going to talk about the Sabres and sort of what their GM, Kevin Adams, had to say in his press conference. Mark, before we get into all of that, though, how are you feeling, dude? We're getting close to Christmas time, man. It's a busy time of the year. How are you doing, dude?
Dude, busy time of the year. Obviously, things picked up over the past week. The whole Rangers saga and the two trades that went through. Obviously, getting close to Christmas here. World Juniors, camp rosters are getting smaller, and we're gonna have squads for that soon. And Christmas is coming, man. So I don't know. I'm pretty excited overall. Pretty excited to take a little bit of a break, unwind, and just like kind of follow hockey. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I'm absolutely excited for this little break, dude. I'm going to a Flames versus Blackhawks game when I'm in Calgary, so I'm gonna hopefully see Bedard if he's playing. I don't see why I wouldn't be playing, but watch that be the one game they scratch in this year. But I'm gonna see a good hockey game there. There's gonna be World Juniors, as you mentioned. I'm excited, and even for the NHL, stuff's starting to pick up. Like, we had a couple trades over the past week or so where it's like the first month and a half of the season. It was sort of not too much going on, right?
Trade here and there, but not as much. I think even like the rumor mill's just kind of picking up overall throughout the league, even with some other players that maybe hadn't been like rumored heavily in the past. So I mean, things are starting to pick up. That trade freeze will kick in, I think, a couple days before Christmas.
Yep.
Guys can't get traded or basically moved from the roster they're on for about, I think it's 5 days or so, the 23rd to like the 28th or something. So I mean, if there's going to be any more trades that they kind of want to get done, they're going to have to do them pretty fast here within the next like week.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens here going forward. Let's move on though and talk about this first trade. We talked about it a little on the last podcast, basically with it being Jacob Trouba and how the Rangers were trying to deal him, and if they couldn't find a deal, they'd end up putting him on waivers. Of course, our luck, the trade went through literally like 2.5 hours after we stopped recording, but Jacob Trouba, he was traded to the Anaheim Ducks for Euro Vakanainen and a 4th-round pick. Mark, what are your thoughts on the deal?
I think like the Rangers got out of this contract pretty easily.
Oh yeah,
like the fact that they're getting. We were talking about in the last podcast, like what is Jacob Trouba's like actual worth, right? Like, He's a right-handed shot defenseman who is on the decline, has shown at points in his career he can be very good. But at this point, we're talking about, what is he, like a 4-5? Well, he's making $8 million, and Anaheim values him as like they have to give up assets to get him. In a sense, like it's not much. It realistically, a depth defenseman and a 4th-round pick, but I don't know, man. He's on the books for this year and next. I was just more assuming that they were going to have to give a pick to get rid of him, potentially a prospect. But I don't know. It doesn't seem that way. And it also, too, it's like there's not a ton of teams interested here, right? Like, and there's only a certain amount of teams that he's even like, I'll go to them because they're on his no trade clause. The other team that made an offer was Columbus, and apparently I think that like the Rangers would have accepted it. I don't know what it was if Trouba wanted to go there, but he didn't want to go to Columbus. I don't know, man. I think his contract, like if we're just looking at like, I always like to look at the comparables, like what has happened in the past. It's like, dude, like the Red Wings had to give a 2nd-round pick to get rid of Jake Wallman's $3.4 million cap hit, and now he's playing unbelievable in San Jose.
Yeah.
And it's not even the fact that he's playing unbelievable. It's like, did they really value him as like a negative asset where it's like they have to give a second to get rid of him? Well, like Anaheim obviously values him as a positive asset. And to be honest, a lot of teams probably value him more than maybe I do, just because I see him as a huge liability defensively. He's not a great skater. Sure, he's very physical. He blocks a ton of shots. He's got a really hard shot himself. But I don't know. It's like, it's not that he's like a quote unquote replaceable, but it's like, okay, if Jacob Trouba was a free agent this summer, what would you be willing to sign him for? Because that's the way I kind of look at it, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I would probably be like at max okay giving him like a 2 to 3 year deal at probably $3 million.
Yeah, it'd be somewhere between 3 and 4, depending on how the market is.
And the way I look at that is, dude, he's making double and more of that. right? And it's like, it's also not an expiring contract. It is another season. And it's like, for Anaheim, it might not seem like a big deal because it's like they have the space, but it's like, I'm also looking at it like, dude, you let the Rangers just get out of an $8 million contract. They're a team that's competing for the Stanley Cup, and cap space. I'm sorry, I see it as an asset.
It's a massive asset.
Like, as much as you can't trade it or move it, it's how you utilize it, right? And it's like, now you're giving the Rangers another $8 million in cap space, not just this year, but next year too. So I think like the fact that Chris Drury got out of this contract and Gaudreau's contract for like basically doing nothing is unbelievable. It's crazy to me. It was like two of the worst contracts on the team, $11.5 million gone, and they didn't have to retain anything. What do you think about this? I know, sorry, I've been kind of rambling, but that's just how I feel. Like, I think the Rangers, like, this is huge. Dude, they can go out and get, like, a stud now if they want.
Well, the rumor is Brady Tkachuk, but that's also a...
Yeah, I don't really see that. I don't really see that happening.
It's also far-fetched, but it's like... The thing is, though, is that you can fit a guy like Brady Tkachuk into that lineup now just because you have that...
Oh, we're going down this road, aren't we?
I'm more just saying that...
I get it, right? If they want to give up a first-round pick and whatever.
It's like you can go and you can get a legitimate guy. It's not like you're getting a guy for $3-4 million where he's more playing on your third line. He's more playing in a role position. Like the Rangers can go out and get a first-line player here with the amount of cap space they have, right? You look at sort of how the negotiations went for this deal. It was rumored that Anaheim wanted Cam Fowler to sort of be in that deal, and New York said no just because they rather have that cap space. And
I think they were okay with taking him this year, but since it's he has got a couple more years left, I don't think they wanted to be committed to that money that long. It would have made total sense, right? But the thing is, it's like, does Anaheim really, like, they have a young team, right? And they want to surround them with veteran guys. I understand that. The team I cheer for is in the middle of that right now. I understand the importance of having those guys around. But it's like, you already have Dumoulin back there. You have Fowler back there. You have Gudas back there. It's like, do you really need, like, is it that valuable to add Trouba to what you already have?
See, I think the way Anaheim's looking at it is they're looking at it where it's not valuable now, but it will be valuable for them within the next 6 to 12 months. Because for Anaheim, they're not a team that's going to be close to the cap ceiling over the next 2 years, right? Jacob Trouba, he's got 2 years remaining on his deal. They're not going to be close to the cap over those next 2 years. You mentioned Cam Fowler, right? Odds are he's probably going to get traded at some point here within the next season, like either this season or next season. He's gonna be gone. With Jacob Trouba too, it's like you said earlier, you would be okay with having him at that $3 million mark, right? If you're a playoff team and you can have Jacob Trouba for $4 million, would you be happy with that? If you needed a right-hand shot defenseman, especially to add some physicality for playoffs, like I'd be fine with that, right? So for Anaheim,
I'd consider it.
For Anaheim, they could retain 50, like even this trade deadline, they could retain 50% of his contract, ship him off to a team, get a pick or whatever, and it's like all you gave up was Vakanainen and a 4.
Okay, I agree, but here's my thing though. This is what I was thinking about. I don't think Anaheim's thrilled to do that, because the reason why I say that is Gibson has been rumored to be traded for years. Yeah. Fowler, to be honest, like, would it surprise you if it's midway through last season and next season and he's still on the team?
At that point, honestly, it would. Honestly,
see, but I could see another situation just happening with Gibson where it's like 5 years ago this guy was rumored to be traded, and it's like, I'm not going to believe it until it happens. Like, and the thing is too, it's like, a lot of teams probably look at Gibson's contract and they're like, ooh, like, he's a good goalie, but it's like he's not healthy all the time. He's kind of losing his job to Dostel right now. So it's like, if Anaheim wanted the value back, they could retain on it. But like, I don't know if it's like they don't see that as an option. It's like, in a trade recently, I haven't really seen where they are retaining for a long term. Like they did on Henrique last year when he went to Edmonton, but that's just for the rest of the season. When it's like a contract that has term on it, it doesn't seem like that they're willing to retain unless it's like a rental. You know what I mean? So I don't know how thrilled they are of doing that. I think a lot of teams like Cam Fowler. I don't think they like him at $6.5 million.
No, there's no shot you want Cam Fowler at 6.5.
That's what I mean. And especially if it's like, if it was just for the rest of this year, yeah, okay, honestly, I'd be fine with it. And he's a top 4 defenseman who could probably help my team, right? But it's like, the fact that it's like, I think 2 more years after this, it's like, I don't know how he's going to look at 35 years old, like making $6.5 million, right? So I don't think that, like, it doesn't seem like it seems like he's either not willing to retain Verbeek or that he's just valuing his assets way too high.
I also wonder too, like you brought up the Gibson one. I wonder with that one how much of it though too is like the trade market for him is just not there, because when we, like 5 years ago when we all thought John Gibson was going to get traded, that he was playing at an elite level. Anaheim's asking, like, the reason a deal didn't go through then was probably because the Ducks' asking price was just too high. Teams didn't want to pay that.
Yeah.
Where now it's done a complete 360 here, where now it's the asking price probably isn't that high for Gibson. It's just that they're going to have to retain a lot of money. And it's even if you're Colorado, we're going to talk about Colorado later, but if you're a team like Colorado who had a goaltending issue, like, do you want to bring John Gibson in, even if he's 50% retained, based off the way he's been playing? Like, he got lit up the other night for 5 goals, right? It's like,
no, honestly, I'm not convinced that I want to bring him in. But the thing is, it wouldn't surprise me if a team was interested though at half retained. You know what I mean? Like, just going off of what he has like achieved in the past as like a really good goalie, right? To be honest, I'm not a big fan of John Gibson. I think he played at an elite level for a couple years, and I don't think that he's returned to that since. You can say it's the team that he plays on. You know what? That is part of it. But look, his goalie partner right now has been one of the best goalies in the NHL this season. So it's like there's an opportunity to be elite, like right, like it's like, I think his numbers have made him look worse than he is for sure. But yeah, like, do I want John Gibson at $6.4 million? Fuck no, dude. I don't want that. That's a lot of money. But I'm surprised some teams aren't interested at like 3.3. But the thing is, it's like, I think that you go into the conversation, it's like, okay, Colorado will retain half, and then Anaheim's like, but then they'll be like, oh, but like, he's at least worth like a second and a prospect now, and Colorado's like, probably like, no, like, you know what I mean? I think that's probably where they're running into trouble with these guys. Like, there's no way that a team is even probably close to what Anaheim would want for Gibson. Like, I just, it's been going on for years, man. Teams have had goalie issues. They probably could have picked him up at points, but it just hasn't happened. Yeah. And I'm not going to believe that it's going to happen until it does.
I think for Gibson, it's not there. But back to Trouba, like, I think for Trouba, maybe if it's not this deadline because you don't want to retain when there's more than 1 year left, but even if it's next deadline, man, like, if I'm a playoff team and I can get Jacob Trouba for $4 million next year's trade deadline team, like, I'd be all right.
Well, to be honest, dude,
round pick and a prospect.
The fact that he's traded once and there's never been retention, you could also do a double retention deal and get him for 2.
So it's
right, like, a team would be willing to come in as a third party for like a 5th round pick, like for $2 million. That's not a whole lot to retain on, right? Like, and if you're that team that's going for it, like, yeah, dude, honestly, if you're telling me I can get Jacob Trouba for $2 million, like, I'm pretty freaking interested.
I'm happy with that.
I'm pretty interested, dude. And it's like, if he's your like third pairing right defenseman, where I'm like, okay, like, let's go here. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think that would be huge. Like,
it would definitely be nice. And Anaheim, it's going to be interesting to see what they do, because they got some veterans here in the lineup where...
Well, did you see recently, like, Minchikov has been the odd man out?
Which makes no sense. That's just going to...
No, and this is why I think they need to really consider trading Fowler.
Yeah.
Because okay, then we get into the point of, like, what is Fowler worth? But then I also look at it is... what is the development of Minchikov worth?
A lot more than Cam Fowler.
That's what I mean. So it's like, you need to, like, even say a team is like, we'll give you a 4th round pick for Cam Fowler, okay? And you're asking for a 2nd. And it's like, no one's even willing to budge. Like, I would say, fuck it, I'll take the 4th at this point. Yeah. I don't really care. Cam Fowler has... what you brought Cam Fowler in to do in this organization, he's been there his whole career, I think. He's been a really good player, dude, at some points in his career. Like, what we're seeing Cam Fowler now is not what he's been in the past. Has he ever been a top defenseman in this league? No. But I would say he's been a consistent, solid, reliable top 4 defenseman throughout his career easily. And it's like, honestly, he was a high pick. Maybe they expected him to be a little bit more than he was. But honestly, dude, I think he's had a heck of a career. And you got to look at that part too. Like, what has he done for you? You know what I mean? You put all this drafting development time into him. You've been on a couple good playoff runs a while back with him too, right? So I don't know. I think you just got to look at too as like, what do you value Minchikov as, right? Like, why is this guy the odd man out? Like, he hasn't been as good this season as he was last. I will admittedly say that, but like, I don't know. He's not getting as much opportunity. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, and you definitely want to see him get that opportunity and be able to grow, because Anaheim, they're in a rebuilding mode, and if your players aren't growing, then you're not going to come out on the other side of the tunnel.
Yeah.
Let's move on though and talk about the Colorado Avalanche here and the trades they've made over the past few weeks. They've basically done a full 360 with their goaltending. They already traded for Scott Wedgwood, and now they've gone out and they've acquired Mackenzie Blackwood from the San Jose Sharks. The full deal is Mackenzie Blackwood, Giovanni Smith, and a 5th-round pick to the Avs. And in return, the Avalanche got Alexander Georgiev, Kovalenko, a 2nd-round pick, and a 5th-round pick. How do you like this deal, Mark?
Man, is it crazy to say that? Like, I don't know who wins the deal at this point. Like, I think it's a really solid deal for both sides.
I agree with you there. Honestly, the Avs, it's really going to depend on how Blackwood plays.
Yeah.
But for the Sharks, man, I think like each team's winning the deal, but also each team's didn't have, like, they don't have the same criteria for winning, right? Like for Colorado, for them to win this deal, it's that they're getting a goaltender that they can actually put in the net, and they can actually
trust.
Actually have some trust. Where for San Jose, really, it's like what picks and what younger players are you
fair. But I also look at it as like, what value did they get for taking on a bad contract in Georgiev, and for like what they gave away, and like Blackwood's probably been like at least a top 20 goalie in the NHL this season, to be honest. Like, if you consider where he's playing, his stats, like even more like advanced numbers, he's been really solid this season.
I honestly think a good comparable trade is the Linus Ullmark trade that we saw over this past summer, because it's a pretty similar deal. It's you're trading one goalie for another goalie on a not great contract. For the only difference was that Ottawa, I believe they had to give up a 1st.
Yeah.
Where here, if you're the Avs, you're only giving up a 2nd. But Linus Ullmark is the better goaltender. And the other thing is, Alexander Georgiev, this is his last year under contract, right? So San Jose is going to have that cap space in the summer. Where for the Bruins, they had to bring back on Korpisalo, who's making this for another 3 years, right?
Yeah.
So it's like the worst contract went back in the Linus Ullmark trade, but Ottawa got the better goaltender, and they had to give up the better pick. Where here it's not as good of a goaltender, not as bad of a contract, but it's not that 1st-round pick. I think it's fair for both teams, to be honest.
Yeah, because I think you get the 2nd, you get Kovalenko is like a decent little player. He played in the KHL for a while, was kind of like up and down the AHL, NHL last year, and was kind of playing more in the NHL this year with like all the injuries they've had. I think he's more like, he could probably be like a middle 6 kind of, or middle 9, whatever you want to call it, type player. And I think that's like a decent asset for San Jose to have as well. Like, they've kind of got like some different options that they can utilize. But I mean, getting a 2nd-round pick, they got Blackwood out of free agency, right, last year.
They gave up a 6th-round pick for him in 2023.
Yeah.
Just to trade for his rights.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, he's been solid since he's been there, too. I think he kind of just had, like, an off year and a bit in New Jersey, and everyone thought he was kind of, like, falling off the earth. And he's a pretty solid goalie, man. I don't know. I think that if Colorado's even getting, like, average goaltending at this point, like, if he's putting up the numbers that he has now, and that's been on a bad San Jose team, like, I think that they're fine.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I wouldn't say they're a cup contender, but it's like, dude, they're struggling to stay in a playoff spot right now. Like, I don't even know if they're in one right now. They were out of one like late last week. So I think it's gonna be fine. Honestly, even Wedgwood, dude, he was playing brutal. He comes over. He's been like pretty stable, dude. He got a shutout, excuse me, last week. He's playing pretty good. So
I like what they have done with their goaltending because
They needed to do
you
it,
went
though,
from
dude.
two guys who you didn't trust at all, and now you got Blackwood and Wedgwood, who you can actually trust. It like if Blackwood has a bad game, you're not scared to throw a Wedgwood in the net. Where it's like for Gorgiev, if he had a bad game, like throwing Anna Noonan in the net was a bit hard because he wasn't really playing that well either. They really didn't have anybody they could trust before. Where now you have Mackenzie Blackwood, who, as you mentioned, look at what he's done on the San Jose team. Now he's playing in front of a way better team, so he could be even better
There's
than
been
he already
multiple
was.
times over the past season and a bit where he's facing 50 plus shots and
Yeah.
only letting 3 to 4 goals. So I mean, I don't know. I will say though, as a goalie, it's going to be a completely different dynamic for him though. Going from basically the worst team in okay, maybe not the worst team in the league, but down there to a team that's good and has some good defense in front of them. Some goalies don't adapt very well to that, to be honest, because when you face a lot of rubber like Blackwood does, you're very engaged in the game and it's almost like a rhythm and routine, but it's I don't know. Colorado also at times hasn't been playing great D, so maybe he'll play. That'll be kind of his way to get into the game, but it's when you go from sometimes facing 40 to 50 shots to 20 to 25, it is a bit of a challenge to kind of stay in there.
It's also completely going to be a completely different locker room environment for him, where it's
For sure.
now you're actually competing, you're winning games, where before you're playing with a lot of younger players, you're in a rebuild mode.
Yeah, and it's a whole different objective, right? You're going from getting the young guys to develop to we want to compete for a Stanley Cup. But honestly, it just goes to I'm happy for the guy, to be honest, that he's in a good situation now. I mean, when New Jersey wasn't good, he had a couple good years there. Like I said, everyone kind of thought he fell off. Kind of has to sign with the worst team in the NHL to even get a job, and it's now one of the better teams in the NHL wants you, right? So it's he's also playing for a contract, dude. You never know if he plays well,
Yep.
he might get an extension. I'm sure they're going to be very weary of what they do, considering they gave Georgiev a 3-year deal, and they probably look back at that and probably think that we should have gave him a 2-year deal. But you never know, dude. It's really going to depend on what he does this season.
The other thing too I find funny about this, just before moving on here, is you got the Woods in net. They used to be in New Jersey, right? They used to be
Yeah.
the tandem in New Jersey, and not only that, but Miles Woods also in Colorado now.
Yeah.
So they actually have 3 Woods on the team, and Miles Wood was also in New Jersey when they were the tandem in New Jersey. So it seems like the Woods are just sticking together here, which I'm sort of enjoying. The Vancouver Canucks, they're almost sort of getting a little big acquisition coming back in the lineup now. JT Miller, he's coming back. He's going to be playing actually tonight against the Florida Panthers. How much is this going to help the Canucks here, having him come back?
It'll be good for him to get another guy that plug into the top 6 there. They've been kind of one of those teams dealing with the injury bug this year. They haven't had a full healthy lineup. I want to say basically at all this season. So it'll be nice to get him back in there. Obviously, he was named to USA's team as well. Probably good for him to get some action in before that tournament gets underway in a bit here. But yeah, I don't know. Kind of curious to see how he responds to this, at least with his play. Hopefully, that break he took was good for him. And honestly, just wish him nothing but the best. And hopefully, he continues to play at an elite level, because he's kind of a guy that's not really talked about. I don't want to say at all, but I think he's a heck of a player, man. He's a lot better than people give him credit for.
He's definitely one of the most slept-on players in the league. The only situation I'm sort of want to keep a close eye on here is how is this going to affect Pettersson, because we all know it seems like there's a bit of riffles between them in the locker room, and they're not the biggest fans of each other. And his biggest issue so far over his career is that he's been very streaky at times, right?
Yeah.
Where it's at points we question, can he be that guy for a team? And then he plays phenomenal. We're like, okay, he can be that guy. And then he has a couple stretches, and
Then he has one 5-on-5 goal in 34 games. Yeah.
but even when you look at what he's done here, when he started the season a bit slower, but ever since JT Miller left, Pettersson sort of picked it up a little bit. Looking here, even over his last 5 games, he has 7 points over his last 5 games.
Yeah.
So he's picking it up a little bit over here, and I wonder, it's with JT Miller coming back in the lineup now, can Pettersson keep up how he's sort of been playing here over the past few weeks? Because if he can, dude, this Vancouver team's going to be looking really good again, to be honest. Where if Pettersson sort of takes a little dive in his play now that JT's come back in the lineup, then it's like, okay. I think at that point, if you're the Canucks, you seriously have to look at, like, can we have these two players on our team going forward for the future?
I know, and it's hard to like as the Canucks, like all you really want to do is like figure this out, right? Yeah. Like it's hard. Like you just signed the young guy to a long contract. You signed Miller not long ago, and it's also like you could trade him, but then I don't know. I don't really see you winning a deal. Especially it's an awkward age to trade him at 31, but it's like he's so worth the contract, but teams might see it as, oh, well, the last couple of years will be brutal. Like, I don't know. I don't see a good situation for them trading him at all. But you also got to think about too. You're talking about Miller coming back. Like they also got Demko back here too. So it's like they're getting a couple of their top dogs coming back. How much are they going to play Demko? Lankinen's been pretty solid, to be honest, this season. Like coming in, Seelovs really hasn't taken that step that I think they hoped from the playoffs last year. So it's Miller back in, it's Demko back in. How is Vancouver going to respond to this? Because sometimes when your top guys come back, it's not sunshine and rainbows, dude. Like it's not easy all the time, right? So I'm kind of curious to see how the next, I want to say till like mid-January. Like what are they going to be like mid-January? Are they going to be up there in their division competing for the top spot, or are they going to be in a wild card spot showing some inconsistencies here, right?
Yeah, because
and maybe not getting stable goaltending. Who knows, right? Pedersen's play could drop. I don't know. So
yeah, like right now they're only 1 point behind Edmonton for third in the Pacific, and then they're only 6 points behind the Golden Knights for first in the Pacific. So it's like first in the Pacific is still
up for grabs,
more than reachable for them. And now that they're getting not only Miller, but as you mentioned, Demko, he's coming back too. It's like, what is this team going to be like? Because we all know this team's most likely going to make the playoffs, but it's like this. I feel like this next month and a half for them is really going to be like, is this team good enough to actually want to run in the playoffs and make some noise? Where in a month and a half, I feel like we'll start to sort of have that answer here.
Yeah.
Let's move out to the East and talk about a team that is sort of on fire right now. It's the Buffalo Sabres. They currently sit 4 points out of a playoff spot, and GM Kevin Adams, spoke to the media the other day. There was a lot of interesting things he said. I don't think he's a big palm tree fan, Doesn't seem like he's a big palm tree fan. I wonder if like on spring vacation they go to like Antarctica. Everybody's going down to like Mexico, warm climates. He's like, fuck the palm trees. We're on Antarctica. But
he's going down south, but just farther.
What are your sort of overall thoughts on basically like what he was sort of saying there in the press conference, and how do you think that went?
I don't know. Well, first of all, you said when a team that's on fire, you made it sound like you were going to say something good about them at first, because I was thinking, I was like, what are we talking about right now?
I was more going to say dumpster fire, and then I was like, I don't want to quite go.
So they're on fire right now. I'm like, they're not really in a good way. But to be honest with you, like, I don't really. I feel like I get what he's saying, and I totally agree with it in accordance to what he's talking about with teams don't really, like, players are not. That's not their first place they want to sign. They have Buffalo on their no trade list. But I think you have to think about it in like a fan's perspective. Like, dude, this team hasn't made the playoffs in 11 fucking years. Do you think that is what they want to hear?
Fuck no, dude.
No, he didn't approach that press conference in the right way, in my opinion.
I agree with you on that.
I didn't know much about this guy when he was hired. I didn't realize until a couple days ago that he's been there 4.5 years, way longer than I thought. Honestly, dude, I would even have him at this point on the hot seat as like potentially fired before the season's done. And it has nothing, honestly, to do with even this press conference. I think it adds to it a bit, but the fact that now that I know he's been there that long, I will be the first to say I was not a big fan of their offseason at all. I don't think they brought in any veteran players to surround the young guys. I don't think they even replaced basically what they had last year. Skinner was a bad contract, yeah, but he was also a pretty consistent 30-goal scorer. It's not really that easy to replace that. You know what I mean? So they want to buy him out, yeah, sure, but they didn't replace it. There's no hole that's filled here. You're looking at getting better, not just replacing what you had. right? And it's like, I don't know. I don't see a good path for this team. They have some really talented young players. The problem is now is if like you're making a trade, it's from a huge position of weakness, right? But the thing is, it's like, do you do that or do you stand pat? It's like Friedman's talking about, teams are calling about Dylan Cousins. He's not been playing well. He makes $7 million. He's young. He scored 30 goals. They're like afraid that he's going to turn into like what Eichel did. He wins the cup. Or Reinhart wins the cup. Or they look at Ullmark. He wins the Vezina. Dude, you can't think like that at this point. So what, are you just never going to make a fucking trade because of this? Like, dude, your roster is not good enough. I'm sorry. Like, even these young players, they're not fucking performing. Like, I'm sorry, dude, at this point. Like, Jack Quinn, fucking see ya, dude. You're not performing. You have one goal. You're supposed to be a goal scorer in this league. It's not happening. Like, to be honest, I would keep Peterka. He had a hot start, but he's not been playing well. They're like they're more like veteran players, which is crazy to say. And Thompson and Tuck and Zucker are like carrying the load right now. Like, it's not fucking working, dude. They need to do something that's going to help this team. And I don't know what it is, to be honest with you. I think they need, excuse me, they need another top six forward.
Yep.
Easily. They were so rumored to be in on Nikash. Holy fuck. It would have been so good if they got him, eh? But I don't know. Like, what would you do? Like, I think you trade from a position of, I'd be willing to move like on from like someone like Jack Quinn. I think that's someone that teams would be interested in. He's a young asset. I would also be willing to move one of the defensemen. Probably Byram.
Yep.
To be honest with you. And it's like, I think you can get a really solid top six forward back. That also can put like Samuelson into the top four, which I don't really love, but I mean, you could also look to get another defenseman back, maybe in another deal, or if it works out with a team in that deal. I don't really know who they'd necessarily like go after, but it's like, you're telling me, dude, that like they couldn't like have acquired Laine this summer?
They easily could have. It's just like they didn't want.
Like, you know what I mean? Like someone like that, where it's like, I don't know, man. Like, it seems like they just don't want to take the risk of like. And the thing is, it's like they have some good prospects in the Rochester, right? So it's like, why don't they just move on from one of these guys? Like, you can't keep all of them. They're all not going to make the team. Like, I don't know.
For me, when I look at the Sabres and what their biggest issue has been through this rebuild is, like, it's honestly the fact that I think it's the fact that they've given up on some of these guys too easily, man. It's like, look at the team, how they are now. Do you imagine how much better this team would be if you had Jack Eichel and Sam Reinhart?
Yeah.
Yeah, you wouldn't have Tuck there.
So you wouldn't do what I'm doing and like what I'm saying and trading any of these guys?
Honestly, I wouldn't, because I don't think, at this point, I don't think them getting a top six forward is going to, it's going to turn them into being like a bubble team to more likely being like, okay, they'll probably make it in the wild card, right?
But the thing is, it's like that is a step forward.
I think
they haven't had.
I think it is a step forward, but it's also if you're having to give up a guy like Dylan Cousins, if you're trading him right now, honestly, you're selling low on him. That
is fair, but that's just a name that teams are calling about, right? Okay, but my thing is, it's like, why don't you even risk trading your own first this year, maybe top 10 protect it, but it's like, even if you get a guy back who like maybe isn't a rental and like has a bit of term, top six forward, it's like, even if you give up the 13th overall pick, it's like, dude, you've had some of these picks recently. Like, you picked Consta Hellenis at 14 last year. Like, you got Benson at 11, who probably should have went higher. Yeah, okay. But it's like, you've had these picks recently along with actual top picks in the draft. Like, fuck it, dude. Just give it up. Like, screw it. Like, you don't need these fucking picks anymore, man. Like, you have so many prospects and picks that it's like, at this point, it's like, do you have 50 contracts? Like, everyone's not making the Sabres. Like,
see, I would be fine with giving up a pick and a prospect, but like trading a guy like Cousins or some of those more core guys, I wouldn't want to see as much. I'd be fine with giving up Byram as well because
But the thing, my argument with Jack Quinn, it's like, dude, he's never been healthy. He's got a great like release on a shot, but it's like he's not really doing anything, man.
Jack
like to
Quinn,
be effective.
I'd be fine trading Jack Quinn as
and
well.
it's like I wouldn't. The thing is, like, I wouldn't give up on Peterka. That's the guy where I'm like, I see a lot of potential in him. I see it in Benson, to be honest, as well. Honestly, the one guy that they brought in this summer that I think has been good for them is McLeod as like a third line center. Good. But like, I don't know, these guys they brought in, the depth guys like Ayube Kubel and Lafferty, and like, I don't know, dude. It's not fucking working.
See, like, it's also interesting because for me it's hard because it's like some of these things are normal growing pains for a rebuilding team, right? Like some of these things, like having the young lineup and having players not taking, like, you know, we talked about this in the season preview episode. Like, you're not gonna have every young player on your team take a step that all in the same season, right? So it's like that stuff's normal growing pains. But for me, where it's like hard to look at Kevin Adams and be like, yeah, like he doesn't deserve to be fired, is just the fact that it's that he moved on from Sam Reinhart. Like, yeah, you got Devin Levi back. That looks like he's gonna be a good goalie. But what is he doing right fucking now to help you? He's playing in the AHL, man. He's not doing anything to help this.
I know.
Sam Reinhart back, for Jack Eichel, you get Peyton Krebs and you get Tuck. I like Tuck as a player. Peyton Krebs honestly hasn't fucking done anything. Really,
no, he's brutal. He's like a borderline NHL
but it's
player.
Like, dude, if you undid those trades, and Jack Eichel and Sam Reinhart are back on this team with like the Tage Thompson and Dowling and the guys that are there, this team would be a playoff team, and it wouldn't even be close. You're telling me that Tage Thompson, Sam Reinhart, Jack Eichel, Dowling, Power. You're telling me that those guys?
Well, dude, I could go through a list of more guys that would even be here.
You can. It's like if you have those guys, you're making the playoffs. But it's like I don't see really why you move on from Sam Reinhart. It's like they moved on.
I didn't really get that either.
And then for Jack Eichel, like I get there's a whole doctor shit, but it's like, man, like who fucking cares if the guy wants to get a different surgery, man? Like,
I agree with that.
It's his fucking body. Like, let him fucking decide what he wants to do with his neck surgery that he's gonna have to live for the rest of his life. But no, we're gonna trade him over that.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't hold Kevin Adams accountable for that because he really had no say.
I honestly think he could have been.
But like, he has to argue on the team's side, though.
I get that, but it's like, can you not just let the guy have his own surgery or have the surgery?
But I don't think as the GM he really has the authority to like do anything about that.
I don't know.
He's kind of more focused on the return he gets as a trade. Yeah, like I mean, if you look at the trade, it's not fair value, but I would argue that like Alex Tuck has done a lot for that team.
He has. I like him.
Like he's probably even excelled as a better player since he's been here. Right, like but like the thing is, it's like he's not on Jack Eichel's level, right? And it's like they were hoping Krebs would turn into like a top 6-4, and it's like he's a fourth liner. Like, I don't know. That's the trade where I least hold him accountable. I more look at the Reinhart trade. I look at not getting anything for Linus Ullmark at the trade deadline before he signed with Boston. I look at getting a third-round pick for Brandon Montour with Florida. That's more the stuff I look at than the Eichel. But, I mean, I thought that he had a real opportunity this offseason to do something. To be honest with you, looking back at it, I know he's not playing that well in Edmonton, but, like, if I had the decision, I probably wouldn't have bought out Skinner. I would have probably given him one more chance, see if he can score 30 to 35 again. Yeah, he makes $9 million. Dude, cap is not your problem right now.
They're $5 million.
They're not a fucking cap team. So, and then I would try to bring someone else in to potentially be another top 6 forward there. And I would have brought a couple more veterans in to surround these young guys. As much as they're not great players, like Eric Johnson and Kyle Okposo were there for most of the season last year as kind of their guys they could lean on. And who is it now? I think their oldest guy on their team is Jason Zucker, and now it's James Reimer.
That's literally the only two guys over 30.
Over 30 years old. It's crazy, dude. It's like, why aren't they surrounding these young guys with guys? And I agree, what he said, the no trade clause thing, it limits you. But it's like there was other options, man. Honestly, dude, that was a team where it's like, I think actually if they traded for Trouba, it would make sense.
Yeah,
a right-handed D, a veteran guy, like, would he help them make the playoffs? I would say probably not, but it's like I would have brought him in as a piece, but I don't know if that was ever an option. Like, I have no idea.
I have no clue. I haven't heard anything about the Trouba Buffalo thing, to be honest. But yeah, I'm with you, man. These guys, Kevin Adams got to do something here to get his job back, essentially, because I think if they don't make the playoffs, I think at the end of the season he might be gone.
But would you not even consider, like, if he doesn't do anything by the first week in January, like, you wouldn't consider getting rid of him mid-season? Like, approaching the deadline because they might make a move or trade a valuable asset at that point? Like, I don't know how... the thing is, it's like, if you're already, like, having huge doubts about getting rid of him anyway, it's like, I don't understand why they just don't do it.
That's fair. It's just I don't know who would take over in that point. And then, like, the thing is, if you are firing him, you're sort of writing your season off there at that point. Whenever you fire him, right? Where it's like, if there's still a possibility, or it looks like they could make the playoffs by that point, then it's hard to fire him, because it's if you do fire him, then essentially you're
it's weird, man. They're a couple games under 500, but they're only really a couple points out. It's fucking...
Yeah.
The East has not been very good.
That's the thing, too, man. It's like these guys win... Like, honestly, they've lost 8 in a row. I think that's where the biggest thing is, but it's like...
Buffalo has?
Buffalo's lost 8 in a row.
What?
8 losses in a row. But it's like, if they're 500, if they're 500 over their last 8 games, and they win their next 2 games, we're talking about them being like 2 points out of a wild card spot.
How many points out are they right now?
Right now they're literally 4 points out right now of a wild card spot. So it's like
I did not know they lost 8 in a row.
Yeah, they've lost 8 in a row, which is like partially why he held that press conference. But even still, like they're only 4 points out of the fucking playoffs, man. Like,
yeah, like that is nuts to me.
It could be even Christmas Day, and we're like they're only 2 points, or even in the playoff spot on Christmas Day. So it's like. We still got to see what's going to happen with
Okay, so here, like we've talked about this a lot. Do you think they're going to do anything, or do you think they're going to like approach the trade deadline, basically have the same roster here?
I don't think so. I think he tries to do something. I think the thing with them is that I think the thing that's scaring him is that every young player that they've traded has sort of come back to bite them in the ass for that trade. So it's like they don't want to rush anything here. Right, it's like Bowen Byram. I'm all right with if they move on from him, but it's like you got to be getting back a forward that's at the same level as Bowen Byram. Of course, he's a defenseman.
See, that's so silly because they had Middlestat, dude.
Yeah,
like it's just so weird. Like I never understood that fucking trade, dude.
Doesn't make too much sense, but
they brought another left-handed defenseman that's a good puck mover. It's just like I don't really get it.
Yeah, it's definitely some questionable decisions there. There's some questionable decisions though on contracts around the league too, and I know you got some bad contracts and also some very good ones you want to talk about. So, Mark, hit us with your best contracts and your worst contracts. To be honest, so let's start with the worst, because
the worst. Okay,
you got to end off on a high.
Okay, I was talking about this with you before. Man, I might take a little bit of heat for this, and I don't think a lot of people know about like how bad this contract really is, but I'm going with Philip Grubauer in Seattle. He's got 3 more years left on his deal at $5.9 million. And if you really dive into Philip Grubauer and the way he's played the last couple seasons, he's basically been a bottom 10 goalie in the league. 5.9 is a lot of money for him to make. He's got, I think, like an .870 save percentage this season. I could be wrong. I don't know if it's gone up over the past couple games or not.
Got an .870.
I don't think this is a good contract, and I think he is a prime buyout candidate this summer with them just re-signing Joey Daccord too to $5 million. I don't think that they're going to want to commit $11 million to these two guys, and I think that he's going to get bought out this summer, and I would argue that maybe there's another contract worse that I don't say, but I think that this is one of the worst contracts in the NHL, especially probably the worst contract for a goaltender.
I can agree with you on that. He's not performed well with them whatsoever. At one point, it was like, is he maybe even their third goalie behind when they had Drieger there, right? It's like Drieger and Decord were both playing well, and he was still not playing well. I agree with you, man. I don't think this is a good contract at all.
And I don't even think it's tradable. It's like, do you even want to pick him up at $2.9 million?
Not really, to be honest.
Yeah, so it's like I that's the way I kind of look at it too. It's just he hasn't been really good. Even he was good in Colorado for a bit, but I mean, like,
he was on Colorado.
He also left, and the next year they won the cup. So like I don't know. Did he get carried by the D a lot too? I don't know. I've never been a huge Philip Grubauer guy, to be honest with you. I think now we're seeing a very similar projection to like Georgiev, to be quite honest with you. So I don't know. I think it's probably up there to be one of the worst contracts in the league for sure.
Okay, let's hear who you have next.
Okay, next I'm gonna go with. There's a couple I'm thinking here in my head, but I think I'm gonna go with Seth Jones in Chicago. He's a pretty solid defenseman overall, but I think that contract is quite brutal. I think it just doesn't get talked about enough, being that Chicago's not kind of fighting for cap space, and it's not really a huge burden on their team, right? He plays number one minutes, obviously, like as their best defenseman. But I'd be more kind of content with Seth Jones making like 5 to 6 mil, in accordance to like 9.5, I think it is
9.5. Yeah.
Like, I think it's just kind of a ridiculous contract ever since it was signed. He kind of signed in that same time frame that a lot of those guys got their deals, like with Makar and Fox and McAvoy and all those guys, right? So I don't know. I've never really been convinced that Seth Jones has ever been elite, to be quite honest with you. I think he was just kind of playing a lot, and he kind of gets hemmed in his own zone a ton, and he's there, right? He's just kind of like, but overall, he's solid defenseman on a cup-winning team, dude. It's like, I don't know, like, what would you even be comfortable with him as? Like a three? A three?
Probably a 3.
Yeah. A 3, but honestly, I'd probably want like a pretty decent defensive 4 with him, or I wouldn't be that confident like in a shutdown role for him. But I think that it's not even just the money, dude. It's that he's got a couple years left.
Dude, he's on year 3 of 8.
Yeah, like this is a long contract, dude, and I don't think that it's a very good one, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think just the fact that he's on year 3 of 8 makes it horrendous. Like, it's not like if he was on year 5 of 8, it's still bad, but it's like, oh man, at least you can see the end of the tunnel, where it's like, dude, year 3 of 8, bro, like you don't even see the end of the tunnel, man.
Yeah.
You don't even see the middle of the tunnel at this point, bro. That's rough for Chicago, dude. They're gonna be coming out of the rebuild trying to like spend money to build a team.
Yeah, I kind of view it as like in a couple years, like, okay, they're not going to be in the same situation as the Rangers, but could you kind of look at it in a similar situation as Trouba down the line?
Yeah.
Where it's like he's a verge top 4 defenseman and he's making way too much money, probably has a year or 2 left on his deal, and it's like you almost want to get rid of him, but I'm not too sure. You have it up right now. Like, what are his conditions? Like, is it going to be a modified no trade eventually? Is he a no move like for most of it? I don't really know, to be honest with you. He probably definitely has some sort of trade protection.
I'm trying to see that right now. I don't see where it says it on here, but I'm guessing he does, though, have he has to have some sort of no move clause or no trade clause. There's got to be something there. Not 100% sure what it is, but if you're signing for $9.5 million, there's no way you're not getting
yeah, like, I mean, it's probably just gonna, like, it wouldn't surprise me if the last couple of years of his deal are like a modified no trade or even a no move, with him thinking like down the line, like, I could get traded and I kind of want, like,
he's got a full no move clause,
so he's gonna completely control where he goes.
Yep.
Right, too. So that's definitely gonna suck a ton.
Yeah, it's not a great contract.
No, it is not a good contract whatsoever. So moving on, I think number 3, I kind of debated this where to put a couple of these guys, but I'm going to go with Huberdeau in Calgary. I know you're going to hate this. He's playing better recently, I know. But you can't tell me for 1 second that he's worth that contract.
He's not.
Or even close to it, dude.
Yeah, he's not.
Yeah, so it's like I don't like hating on the guy because I actually like him, but it's just like you can't argue the fact of how much he's declined over the past little bit, right? To where he was at that point in his career with Florida. It's more to just the term too, right? Like he's going to be what when the contract expires?
He's going to be 38. He's currently on year 2 of 8 right now. He's going to be 38. He's going to be 38 when he hits UFA. So he's going to retire. Honestly, dude, I could... The only thing that might actually help the Flames out here is, honestly, like, he might not make it to the end of the contract. Like, he might be like a Shea Weber scenario where it's like, by the time he's 35, he retires or something. Like, dude, and like, who knows, right? But the only thing here for the Flames that can maybe help him out is if he doesn't make it the full 8 years playing the NHL. But that's a lot of looking for, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. It's not a great contract. Like, you're paying a guy $10.5 million to be a .66 point per game player.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, remember you talking about earlier the year, like, is he going to be a point per game? Remember you said as like overreaction. I was more like a bit, but like I think he's going to be hitting 70 points, but like he's more on pace to be hitting what, like 60?
60, 50.
Like that's that's not ideal, dude.
No.
Like you'd be probably paying the guy like $6 million for that, right? Like
I don't even know if you'd be paying a guy $6 million.
You're kind of overvaluing it like a ton there. I think in my opinion, right? So I don't know, just not a good contract that length. 38 years old, dude. That scares the absolute shit out of me, to be honest with you. I don't know if it scares you too, but
it scares me.
Is it a no move clause too? Like for a lot of it?
No move clause yet.
Man, I didn't mean to get you so upset here, but I mean,
no, it's good. Honestly, because the cap's gonna go up. So like every team has a contract that's like not the greatest. It's just like whose are worse than others, right? So it's like this one's definitely not great, but it's like when you look at the Flames, they're probably gonna go through some sort of rebuild here within the next few years. So it's like we're not gonna be spending near the cap at that point, and then by the time we probably are gonna be like competing for a cup again, it's like at that point, either he's gonna have retired by then, probably. Like he's either gonna be like have retired or like LTI or something like that, right? Or if not, then it's like, well, at least at that point, the cap's gonna have shot up another $20 million. So it's like at least having that contract is at that point manageable, you know?
Yeah.
Because it's like right now, like could you imagine how much worse it would be right now if the Flames were like in a position where it's like you're competing for a cup and you're trying to go out and spend cap space, like you're trying to go out and like get another top 6 forward and like another like a guy like Matt, like trying to replace Matthew Tkachuk. So you wouldn't like it'd be so much worse. The only thing is like you mentioned Seth Jones, that one's not talked about as much because he's on Chicago. Where it's like even this Huberdeau one, I don't think it's talked about as much anymore, at least because he's on Calgary and we're sort of going through the rebuild now. But
yeah, definitely not like an ideal situation at all, to be honest with you. And I don't think that there's really any way out of it for you guys.
Yeah,
to be quite honest, and it's not really looking too good. But like, they're gonna have to find a way to work around it. You know what I mean? Like Conroy didn't dig himself that hole, but I think you just got to work with him and see how you can improve his game and try to get him. I don't see him getting to where he was in the past, but it's like if you can just show significant signs of improvement, even get him up to a point per game. The cap's going up. It doesn't look as bad, right? But I'm just it's just that it's another year of him like this, right? Where it's like I think this is more the player that he is now than instead of it like, okay, he's getting used to a new situation, a whole new different team dynamic and like system, right? So I don't know. I like the guy. I hope he gets back up there, but I don't really see him doing it, to be honest.
For me, I'm almost wondering if he can be a guy like Tyler Seguin almost.
Okay.
Because it's like
overpaid, but still a pretty good role on the team, and
and it's like honestly, Tyler Seguin, dude, like 3-4 years ago, we were talking about that being up there as one of the worst contracts at the time, but over time,
he's gotten better.
He's gotten a bit better, and with the cap going up, it's made it to be like, okay, like he's still overpaid for sure, but it's not as bad. And like, look at Dallas, they're a fucking wagon of a team, right? It's like so Sagan last year 52 points, year before 50, 49, right? So it's like Huberdeau without a doubt could be in that range, I think, but it's like maybe in like 2 or 3 years, Huberdeau is around 50. Like 55 to 70 points per game. The cap's gone up. Calgary's got some good younger players, and it's like, okay, like still an overpay, but it's manageable now, and he has a role.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if it could turn into something like that.
Yeah, I could see that for sure.
Who do you have at the 2 spot?
2 spot. I'm going to go against my own team here. I hate the contract of Josh Anderson. $5.5 million. He's making too much money. He hasn't really performed at, I would say, even a good level in the past 2 years. I think ever since he's came into the team, I was really excited when they actually got him, actually. I thought he kind of brought a different dynamic that they didn't have. I thought he was pretty decent on their cup run as well a couple of years ago, but I think ever since then he hasn't been good. He had a really rough year last year. He's making $5.5 million for, you have it up there. Is it 3 years after this year?
He's on here 5 of 7, so it's 2 after.
Even 2 after this, I still consider this one of the worst contracts in the league.
Yeah.
Because the way I look at Josh Anderson is, I think there's a lot of guys you could compare him to in accordance to, like, he plays that tough style. He'll fight too. Like, I mean, he's not one of the toughest guys in the league or anything, but it's like, dude, he threw down with Trouba, like, earlier this year. He's kind of willing to, like, go against the tough guys, to be honest with you, but he's not going out there and kind of getting it himself. He skates really well. He's probably one of the worst passers I've ever seen in the NHL, to be quite honest with you. But I don't like this contract. I more look at Josh Anderson as honestly, I think he's like a good 4th liner. You could probably plug him in the 3rd line. But I'd be willing to probably give him like $2 million.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't think he look at his stats. He doesn't really do anything that is. He had that, what was it, a 20 or 25 goal season with Columbus like 8 years ago or whatever the hell it was.
So he had 47. He had 27 goals that year, 47 points. Since then, he had.
Did he had a 20 goal season with Montreal or no?
No.
That's what I mean, dude.
Actually, no, he did. He had 19 and 21, 22, and then in 22, 23, he had 21. So he's had it once and was close the other time, but it's really been the last 2 years where it's like.
But I still think if you look at his stats, you might more look at that as like that's probably like a good 4th liner who can maybe fill in the 3rd line. I think the way he skates, it's like he's had opportunities in the top 6. It really hasn't worked out, to be honest, at all. I think he's like a solid 4th line player. I don't think he's even performing well this year. I think $5.5 million is way too much. I don't think he's been worth it a single season that he's been here, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, I agree with you on this one. It's not a great contract for you guys. At least you guys are in a similar position though, as it like where it's not restraining you guys as much, you know. But yeah, it's I'm just can't believe that you guys signed him to a 7-year deal. I thought you guys signed him to like a 3 or 4. Like
no, so when he basically he told Columbus and Montreal, like before he like even got traded, that he was either only signing a 1-year deal or a max term.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy that he signed 7 years, dude.
Yeah.
But
that was a Bergevin move, and he loves that type of player, right? So
yeah,
that's why he brought him in. And look, I was pumped that they brought him in, but right when they signed him, I'm like, what the hell is this? Like,
what is this?
Like if it was like 4 or 3.5, I'd be like, okay, this is a lot better. But like 7 years for a guy who hit 47 points like once and has been. He was injured a ton earlier in his career, right? Too. So I like him though. The thing is, like, I like the way he plays. He has a good style, but it's like when you look at him and if you told someone that guy makes $5.5 million, like it's like what? Like it's insane to me. He makes way too much money. Okay, number 1, he's playing a little bit better this season, but Darnell Nurse has got a terrible contract.
Hell yeah, brother!
$9.25 million for. What is it, 5 more years?
He's on year 3 of 8.
Oh, brother. That's terrible.
Yep.
Like, I mean, it's to the point where I thought he was going to be a lot more offensive after, what do you have, like a 16-goal season that shortened year when they played like 50-something games. But it's like we're talking about like off the pod, like they kind of need a guy to bring in their top 4 that can move the puck. And it's like, dude, you're paying this guy like he's an elite defenseman in the NHL. And dude, is Darnell Nurse even like a top 60 defenseman in the NHL?
Not even close, dude.
100?
Oh, 100 probably. 60, no, though.
But it's crazy to say because top 60 is legitimately like a top pairing on every single team.
Yeah.
So it's like he's not even a top pairing defenseman. I think he's more like a 4.
He's a 4 or 5. Yeah, no, he's more of a 4.
Yeah, like I think he can eat minutes, right? He blocks shots. The thing is with him too is he's not very overly physical, which is very weird.
For size,
I mean, he's
weird.
a really good skater. But I think that the longevity of this contract is terrible. With 5 more years left or whatever the heck it is, at that amount of money. Obviously, this contract is talked about a ton with it being in Edmonton. They don't have cap space. I hate this contract. I hated it the second it was signed. It's one of these deals that's holding back McDavid and Draisaitl from honestly reaching the pinnacle.
I'm 100% with you, dude. This is a worst contract in the NHL, and it's like...
See, the way I look at it is like, I think Seth Jones is a bit better than Darnell Nurse as a player.
Yep.
So that's why I more have him down the list more. Because it's comparable, right? It's like they almost make the same amount of money, and it's like they almost have the same term left on it as well. But it's like I'd prefer Seth Jones. Like if Edmonton could trade Darnell Nurse for Seth Jones, I would take it. You wouldn't?
No, just because he's making that 500,000 more.
Really? But I don't know. I think he's worth the 500,000 more though.
It's fair. It's just not enough of a difference, like, man, at that point.
But it's also a right-handed shooting defenseman, and you could go out and get another guy and then it's easier for you to acquire a left-handed shooting defenseman if you want to upgrade in that way.
I just think that he's got to, like, I don't know, man. I think Ryan Reeves was just trying to do the Oilers a favor with that hit and just throw him on an LTIR.
Yeah, I definitely say that's the worst contract in the NHL, though, if it came down to it.
It's a really bad one. You want to go through our best now here or what?
Top 5. Yeah. Honestly, dude, this is hard, man. There's some really good contracts. There's like a couple different ways to approach this, right? Too, like, am I going like for superstars, or is it more like middle of the lineup guys that like might not make a lot of money? Like, how much does term kind of factor into this as well? So a couple of them that I kind of thought about. Number 5. Just signed last year, Brandon Hagel with Tampa Bay.
That's a good one, dude.
$6.5 million for 8 years. Dude, I think it's a bargain for him, man. Like, look at his numbers, man. The past, like, year and a half. 70-plus points last year. Responsible defensively. Grindy player that goes into the corners. Like, everyone was talking about when...
He might crack 100 points this year, dude. Like,
if he keeps it up the pace.
He keeps up the pace, which, like, I don't know if I don't see him slowing down that much, to be honest, dude. Like, if Brandon Hagel cracked 100 points this year, I wouldn't be, like, surprisingly shocked.
With who he plays with, too.
Yeah, and, like, playing on that power play, man. Like, I could see this guy cracking 100 points this year, and not only is he possibly going to crack 100 points this year, but he's also, like, a physical fucking player, gets in your face, man. Like, you know who
I was so happy he made Canada. He deserves it.
He almost reminds me of, like, a younger Brad Marchand, dude.
Okay.
Like, a bit of a smaller guy, but he's an absolute fucking asshole to play against.
Yeah.
Puts up points, dude. Like, he's a good fucking player, man.
I think, honestly, dude, you could look at this as one of the best value contracts in the NHL.
Without it.
Especially if he's playing at this level throughout the duration of it. Like, everyone was talking about... Because he was one of those guys who got the extension the summer early before it kicked in, right? And Stamkos was also eligible at that point, and there was like... It was kind of like they picked Hagel over Stamkos, which, honestly, is the better fucking choice. Like, I think that Tampa just saw the potential that Hagel had. Well, and it's like, as much as some guys benefit from playing with elite players, not everyone can do it.
Yeah.
Like, if everyone could do it, then all these guys would be doing it. But it's like he has that special skill, right? And he's the guy who's willing to go into the corner and get the puck out to give to fucking Stamkos or Point or Kucherov, right? So I love this contract, dude. He's still at what is he, 27, 28?
26, dude.
Yeah.
This contract expires when he's 33. Like, honestly, man, the more...
So he's going to be expiring essentially when Stamkos was, like at his age.
The more we're talking about this contract, dude, the more I'm thinking having it at 5 might be, like, way too fucking low, but...
I don't know, man. I got some pretty good ones coming up here.
We'll see.
I got some good ones coming up here. Okay. The next one, I am going... Fuck, I just don't know how to number these because it's so hard to like differentiate the value in these.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with Heiskanen in Dallas. I think the amount of minutes this guy munches every single night, he plays against the top dogs. Honestly, the points haven't really been there this year for him, but I think how good this guy is, I'd say if you have him any worse than like a top 7 defenseman in this league, I think you're nuts. I think he's an elite two-way player. I think him making 8.45 or whatever the hell it is unbelievable. I think that if you signed him today, I think he could walk into Dallas and be like, Darlene makes 11, I'm making 11 and a half.
Yeah, he could do that if he wanted to, for sure, no problem.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like the value that he's actually bringing into his team is unbelievable. Like, he's an elite two-way defenseman. Honestly, I just sometimes wish he'd put up some higher offensive numbers because I think people would start more, like, taking him seriously as, like, a top, like, 3 to 5 defenseman in this league. And I think that is the one thing that might hold him back from being that right now. Like, if Heiskanen was putting up 70 points a season right now, I think we'd talk about him up there with, like, he's probably a tiny bit below, like, Hughes and Makar.
Yeah.
Like maybe that Adam Fox level. You know what I mean?
I think he's better than Adam Fox, to be honest. Dude.
Really? Okay.
Adam
like,
Fox,
I think that's, like, a decent, like, I think they're, like, pretty comparable. I think Fox, it's, like, you get the defensive elite numbers and you get the points where it's, like, Heiskanen, those elite offensive numbers aren't there, but you're getting the elite defensive results.
I would argue, though, that, like, Fox defensively is not close to as good as Heiskanen.
Really? Okay. Yeah. I think Fox has been a really good defensive defenseman, like, throughout his career. But, I mean, that's where we disagree, and that's fine. You know what I mean? Like,
he also has Igor back him up, though, and the other thing, too, is when you look at the Rangers, like over Adam Fox's career, that Rangers defensive core has been a lot better than the defensive core Heiskanen is playing with. Like the best defenseman Heiskanen's played with, it might be 3 months of Chris Tanev.
Yeah, I mean, I'd argue Harley right now, though.
Harley right now is right now.
And the thing is, like, Lindell's really good, like, shutdown. It's like, okay, yeah, I do get what you're saying. Like, and the thing is, too, it's like he probably munches more minutes than him. Yeah. He's also one of the only guys that, like, is, like, really good at moving the puck on the back end. Now with Harley, I mean, it's a different story, but, like, dude, the rest of their guys, it's like, dude, like, go on and search up Dallas's D-core, their stats, okay? And look at the time on ice per game where it's Heiskanen, Lindell, and Harley, and then it's, like, a drop-off, and then it's, like, Dumba, Lyubushkin, Lundqvist, and I think Brendan Smith for time on ice.
Miro Heiskanen is 24 minutes a night. Harley is 22. Lindell is 21. And then their next defenseman is Lyubushkin at 17.
Like, that's honestly, like, 4 minutes a game is a lot.
And then after that, you have Dumba at 15. Yeah, like, he's playing
a lot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know. I'm raving about this guy. I like him. He's still got, I think, at least 4 years left on this contract at about like 8.45.
Yeah.
So honestly, I would consider this one of the best value contracts in the NHL.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you on that one. I love this guy, man. I love his contract. Like, I think last year I had him as my Norris pick, to be honest. But
I think what holds him back from the Norris is the high point totals.
It's the points, but I feel like he almost prioritizes though the defensive aspect a bit more.
But honestly, dude, if he put up like a point per game, like a season, like honestly, I think he'd probably win the Norris.
Yeah, he would. I'd like to see him win the Norris at some point too, to be honest.
All right, number 3, I'm gonna go with Tage Thompson, Buffalo. I think 6 years left now on his deal, $7.1 million. Dude, I think this is a really good contract. Like, you're kind of paying him as like a 2C. And you're getting, like, really good results as, like, a first-line center. Like, a guy who scored 47 goals what do you have, like 38 the year before that? Considered a quote-unquote down year for him last year with 29 goals and being injured.
He's got 16 in 24 games this year. This guy still might score 50 this year.
That's what I mean, man. And he was out with injury a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know. We talked about Buffalo and what's wrong with them and this, but like this is one of their bright spots, man. Like you're telling me right now, if Tage Thompson signed a contract tomorrow, like he wouldn't be looking at $10 million bucks?
I think he's looking more, dude.
Yeah,
he's
11.
I think he's like around 11, even maybe 11 and a half. You could argue.
Maybe Buffalo argues Dahlin's better and he makes 11, take a bit less. I could see that as well. But regardless, we're talking about him outplaying his contract by $3 to $4 million.
Yeah.
This thing was just signed like 2 years ago, right? And the thing was too, dude, last year, like I think people really overreacted with him. He was injured a bit. He had 29 goals. Dude, if he had one more goal and hit 30, would we really be like, oh my God, he had a bad year? Like, dude, he had one less goal, and he also was coming off like a wrist injury. Like, that's going to affect the way he scores goals. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, man. I think he's going to be a consistent 40-plus goal scorer throughout the duration of this contract, and I think this contract might even look fucking better as it ages.
Dude, like, just to put it in perspective, too, Tage Thompson he's not even in the top half of highest paid first line centers.
I know.
Like, I have all the first line centers and how much they make, and he's not close to the top half. That's fucking crazy.
He's getting paid like a second line center, man.
Yeah, that's another good contract here.
Yeah. All right, my next one, I'm gonna go with. You kind of brought this name to my attention a couple days ago, and I really didn't like take in just because it was just signed as Reinhart with Florida. I think $8.6 million, man, for what this guy's been doing, especially recently, is such a bargain. I think the only reason you might have a tiny bit concern is like because it's gonna be like 36 when he's done. But
Yep.
I think at that point, the cap, dude, is it really gonna matter? Like him making that much money? The thing is, I look at him too. It's like. The thing is with Reinhart is like, yes, he's exploding offensively the last little bit, but he's always been a reliable two-way player. Like even when he wasn't putting up these elite numbers, like he was always a guy you could count on, be responsible defensively, still a pretty good goal scorer and point producer. He just was never doing it at the level that he is now. And I think that getting him for like $8.6 million, man, and if he's gonna. Like, isn't he on pace to get more goals than last year? And he had 57?
He has 39 points right now. Honestly, the on-pace stuff, I'm not 100% sure because I don't have a calculator with me right now. But honestly, though, like, looking at the points, like, he's top 5 in points right now, man. Like, Kirill Kaprizov, right now, he's the favorite for the Hart. You could make a pretty strong case for Nishas. I think Sam Reinhart, dude, like... He's maybe not top 3 right now, but like depending on how the rest of the season goes,
I would even argue like that's a very valid argument because I look at it as like Bob's kind of having an off year. Barkov was injured for a bit.
Yep.
Kachuk's been really picking it up lately, but he didn't get off to a great start. So it's like even their elite players that are around him like haven't necessarily like been there to like be playing at that same level that he has, right? He's been kind of carrying the load here. So honestly, if you had him on your Hart ballot, like that's not crazy, man.
Like right now, for me, he's not quite there. He's definitely like, but it's like depending on. There's still a lot of time left. It's like by the end of the season, he could easily be in my top 3 for the Hart, depending on how stuff goes. Like if Kaprizov slows down a bit here, or if Marty Nishas, if Kaprizov or Nishas slow down here in the second half of the season, then Sam Reinhart keeps on producing the way he is, Sam Reinhart's in the Hart conversation.
Yeah, no, I could totally see that.
I think this is a good contract, and even as you mentioned, like the age thing, it's like, dude, by the time this contract expires, dude, the cap's gonna be fucking. Dude, it could be 40 million higher than what it is right now. Like the cap.
Yeah, you don't really know, right? In 8 years, like that's a long time.
Yeah.
All right, number 1 contract. I don't know if you're gonna agree with me on this. I love this player, and I think that when he signed this contract, it was looking like a bargain, and I think it's a bargain now. It's Jack Hughes with New Jersey.
Dude.
I think that there's been points in his career he's maybe looked a little bit better than he is right at this moment. But I think that the level that he can get to when he's there, it's like we're talking about him as being one of the best players in the league. I think that he's taken on a whole new role, especially defensively this year, where he's been really great. Dude, I just think having this guy at $8 million is just such a luxury, man. Like, if he was signing today, it'd be way more. Like, let's be honest. Like, I'd probably be like, maybe even 12, I'd probably be in the conversation. Like, if he wanted that, it's like, I wouldn't think it's that nuts. You know what I mean? I don't know. Some people don't think he's as good as I do. I just think that he has such high hockey IQ, and that he's just got an unbelievable skill set. And especially even now that it's like he's showing that he can be elite on the defensive side of the puck, it's like I could see this guy leading a team to a Stanley Cup.
Yeah. He's only 23 still, too. Like, this guy could be a 150-point player at some point in his career.
And it's like, in my opinion, people disagree. Like, I think undoubtedly he's a top 10 center in the league.
Oh, without a doubt.
I would say probably top like 7 to 8. And it's like, I wouldn't be surprised if like by the end of the year or even some point next year, I'm like, he's a top 5 center in the league.
Yeah.
Like, I just think that he has that potential. He's shown it at times, and I think New Jersey's headed in the right direction. And they're gonna be this is their kind of window where they're wanting to start compete for cups and shit, right? So I think he's gonna be a huge part in it. He hasn't obviously played a lot of playoff hockey, but even when he did that one run, he was pretty good. You know what I mean? So I really like this contract.
Yeah, I like it a lot, too. I love him just based off the fact that I have him in fantasy, to be honest, too. So
I want to mention a couple guys that I left out, though, because I feel like there might be, like, some guys are like, why didn't you have this guy in or whatever? One guy I'm going to say is Stützle.
Yep.
Like, he's making 8.3. I think he's got, like, 5 or 6 years left. Like, I think that's an unbelievable contract, to be quite honest with you. Honestly, like... There's so many guys you could look at, because it's like, dude, like I look at Kucherov, and even though he's got like 2 years left, it's like, dude, the fact this guy makes $9.5 million, it's like he could be making 14. Like, you know what I mean? So easily. like I don't know, like Makar, like he makes $9 million. Like there's so many guys there's so many different paths I could have taken here, and even another guy like that came into my mind who signed a bridge deal this summer is like, dude, Connor McMichael. Like, he makes $2.1 million, and I get it's for 2 years, but it's like, dude, he's like almost scored 20 goals already. Like, it's like, what the hell, right? So, those are the 5 I came up with. Like, curious to hear what you guys think about that. I honestly thought it was pretty decent. Got a couple different types of guys in there, not just like superstars, I guess, but even though a couple of them were, but...
Overall, I agree with your list, man. Both the worst and the best. I don't think there's any really snubs or anything. There's also a lot of guys, though, like as you said, like it's hard to judge when you're taking all the factors like point production, how good are they defensively, age, term, like how much, like there's so much to take into it. I think
yeah, like even like to be honest with you, if we're talking about straight money, it's like, dude, I'd probably have Trouba in there, but it's like it's for a year and a half.
Yeah,
like
so
it's like, so is that really worse than Darnell Nurse making 9 point? You know what I mean? So. It's really how you judge it. I more went off like I tried to get the term in there, so it's kind of like more like, oh, you're not just getting out of this in the next year and a bit. Like one guy I honestly contemplated having on there was Erik Karlsson, like because it's like he's not performing at that level at all, but it's like he's got 2 more years left after this, so it's like would you prefer Erik Karlsson or Seth Jones? Like probably Erik Karlsson just because like you're not committed to it as long, right? So
overall, today's podcast was great. We covered a lot. Next week, we'll be ripping through the World Juniors rosters, doing a full preview of the World Juniors rosters and sort of what we think about that tournament. So stay tuned for that episode, and thanks for tuning in, everybody.